So hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be doing a quick webinar on talking with teens. So I'm going to jump straight in and introduce ourselves. So my name's Paige and with me I have Holly. We are from the Me Project. The Me Project is a branch of Cura-Care Yorkshire Limited who originally started out providing short breaks for children with disabilities and community support work for adults. Quite recently, we've realised that there is a need for more mental health services, particularly for teens and young people. And so this year we launched this project as a therapeutic talking services for anyone over the age of 12. So today we hope to be looking at communicating with young people and aim to cover the following things: the definition of parenting and what it means to be a parent, factors that have changed how we raise our children through time, the importance of effective communication, how parenting styles from childhood can impact communication, ways to promote healthy communication, and to look over some of the results that we collected in one of our surveys. So we'll start off with the definitions of parenting. And the first thing that I want to cover is what is the role of being a parent. So in its most simple terms, the role of being a parent is the activity of bringing up a child. And does this differ at all from what being a parent is? So being a parent doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have given birth to or for a child to be biologically yours, and a parent can take on lots of different forms. It can include those on screen, such as step-parent, grandparent, legal guardian. It can also include foster and adopted parents, the local authority in some cases. And it's just really important to note that anybody who is in the position of raising a child can take on the role of a parent. Parenting is a lot different now from what it used to be, and has certainly changed a lot in the past 100 years. And there are certain factors that have impacted communication within families during this time. So by no means is this an extensive list of everything that has changed, but some of the things that we believe to be quite key in this change are things such as social media and technology. So social media and technology can be a blessing for teenagers and anybody really. It's a source of communication with those who aren't close to us physically in distance. It can be great for education, which we're finding out recently. It can be a source of entertainment and lots of other things. But what it also does is, whilst it might make us closer to those who are far away, it can actually quite easily make us distant from those that are right next to us. So, I'm sure you often see teenagers with their heads in the phones, even parents with their heads in the phones around a dinner table in a restaurant. And it can actually be really impactful upon healthy communication. It's also really important to consider risks when your teens and young people are using the internet. And whilst it's a great thing, it's important that they do know these dangers and are aware of those too. So the next thing that we consider to be a big change is the change in family sizes and values. So families used to be a lot bigger, families were a lot more connected. We used to have evening dinners where families would get around the table and eat together, and Sunday dinners where maybe everybody would go to grandma's house and all get around the table with wider family. And it just gives an opportunity, or gave an opportunity, to speak about things that are going on, how the day's been, how the week's been, and just gives the opportunity to speak about problems. Whereas now, what we often see is children and young people taking their dinners to the room, maybe they're on the computer watching TV, playing games, and just not having that kind of family time as an opportunity to air any problems. So that again has impacted the way that we communicate. And a final thing that we believe to be a big change in communication in the past 100 years or so is the changes in discipline and the form of discipline. So this is a brilliant change, really. But whereas children, it used to be thought that children and young people should be seen and not heard, and corporal punishment was the kind of main way of punishing or reprimanding children and young people. But now, a lot of the time, this is being replaced with healthy communication, which gives your children, gives your young people and teenagers the opportunity to speak about why, the reasons why they may have done something wrong, or any feelings or emotions, or just anything that's going on, which is a fantastic change in our eyes. So now we're going to move on to why it is important to communicate effectively. So just cast your mind back a tiny little bit to when you were a teen. Maybe there were certain things that your parents or anyone else didn't do that would have enabled you to communicate more effectively. Some of the things that we consider to be really important in regards to communicating effectively is that to recognise that teenagers are growing up and gaining independence, and that this is 100% natural. They're going to spend less time at home, they're going to spend less time with parents, but to make sure that you are still a part of their life and know what's going on, it's important to make time, ask them questions, ask them kind of what's going on for them, if there's anything happening that you should know about, but try not to be probing, because that can automatically shut them off. So as I've mentioned, they're going to be spending less time in the home and less time with parents, but what they need to know is that they do have a safe base at home, that they've got a safe space that they can go to where they have people that are interested and care about them. It can act as a crucial balance against the uncertainty and insecurities that they will face whilst out of the home and integrated into adult life. And also quite an important thing to remember is that you were once a teen, and yes, things might have changed, maybe quite a lot since then, but you will be able to help guide them, through the most difficult points of their life. So now we're going to have a quick look at parenting styles and how this can impact healthy communication. So I'm going to hand you over to Holly, and she's going to talk us through that.
There are 4 styles of parenting, all of which can have effect on teenagers' mental health, whether that be a positive or a negative effect, and these will then continue throughout their adult life. So the purpose of this part of the presentation is not to shame or to indicate that any certain style is better than the other, but rather just to highlight the impact of these styles may have. So the first parenting style we are going to look at is authoritarian. So this parenting means that the parent dictates to the child what they can and cannot do, and that child must obey. So children of authoritarian parenting style may think and believe things such as, my parents will give me certain jobs and will not let me do anything else until they are completely done. My parents believe in having rules and I must stick by them. And lastly, my parents make sure I know exactly what I can and cannot do. So how do you think this will affect an individual in the future? So children of this type of parenting are expected to behave exceptionally. And when they make mistakes, they are then punished and provided with very little guidance on how to avoid making these said mistakes again. There's a lot of pressure placed on a child, which they'll then carry on, they will carry with into their teenage years and then throughout their lives. So this may result in them being less resourceful, finding it hard to make decisions and struggle to display their emotions. So teenagers with these attributes may struggle with things such as perfectionism and anxiety and low mood when faced with any kind of challenge. So it's important that these teens know that they aren't going to be perfect at everything and that they can have autonomy over their own lives and are able to make their own decisions, whether them decisions are right or wrong. So the next parenting style we are going to explore is permissive. So this parenting style is the complete opposite of authoritarian. Permissive takes more of a nurturing approach. However, limited boundaries are set, so parents may be considered more of a friend. And although there are some good aspects of this type of parenting, it may result in teenagers overstepping boundaries and parents being unable to enforce rules due to fear of upsetting the said child. So, how do we think this will affect the individual in the future? So, children of this parenting style tend to be more comfortable and generally relaxed with themselves. They tend to have better self-esteem and view the world in a more positive light. They can try new things and make mistakes without the fear of any punishment. However, this style can have some negative impacts, such as difficulty sticking to boundaries and following rules, which, as we all know, is an essential part of everyday life, whether that be in high school or progressing into the workplace. So now we're going to have a look at the authoritative parenting. So if parenting came on a scale, this would be in the middle of authoritarian and permissive. So there will be boundaries and rules for these teenagers. However, it allows teenagers to make mistakes, but understand that they are responsible for their actions and that them actions then have consequences. So when mistakes are made, teens may be disciplined appropriately and proportionately, but will at the same time be reassured that it is all right to make mistakes and that everybody does and we always will be making mistakes. So as children, teens of authoritative parents will have learned to understand their emotions and to understand that ups and downs are a natural part of life. They'll be given opportunities to talk about their feelings and will know the importance of talking about the feelings as well. They'll also feel confident and comfortable to speak to their parents and view them as a positive role model and not feel fearful of them, whereas maybe teens of authoritarian parents might. However, we do want to just make it clear that it's not to say that opening up about mental health wouldn't still be difficult, but that may be due to other factors such as maybe like societal stigma that unfortunately is still attached to mental health. So we do have an example of authoritative parenting. So I understand you're upset with your exam results. Why don't we sit down and have a look through the papers, see how we can improve next time? So this creates an understanding of their emotions, allows them that their emotions aren't just being dismissed, but they're not being disciplined despite the fact that they didn't do very well in the results, and it provides a positive outlook on potential future attempts. How do we think this will affect the individual in the future? Accountability. They have the choices and they are accountable for the consequences that eventually come with them choices. They will respect their parents and figures of authority, such as teachers and then eventually bosses when they progress into the workplace. However, they will be respectful, but also know when to say no and when to fight their own corner when it is required. And finally, to learn and grow from the mistakes and just generally not being fearful of making them initially. So lastly, we're going to look at uninvolved parenting and how that affects teenagers. So parents with an uninvolved parenting style tend to just leave their children to their own devices and often have no interest in their child's progression whatsoever. They have limited and unclear expectations, which often leaves a child very confused about what is acceptable to do. So maybe one day one activity is acceptable in that house, but then another day it's not. So they aren't encouraged to speak about their emotions or their well-being, meaning that often they suppress their feelings and may lack self-esteem and self-control. Then eventually in the teens, this uninvolved parenting style may mean that teens are more likely to act out and rebel, because unfortunately for these young people, any attention is better than no attention. So once again, teens of this parenting style may then struggle with things such as anxiety, low mood, and all them kind of things due to the fact that the parents are not interested in their progression or their general interests whatsoever. So I'll now pass you back to Paige, who's going to discuss more ways to promote healthy communication with your teenager.
So thanks for that, Holly. So here we have some ways to promote healthy communication, just as Holly said. And again, I'm just going to acknowledge that this is, again, not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are lots of other things, and you may know other things yourself, and ultimately you know what works for you and your family. But some of the most important things to consider when promoting healthy communication include things such as trust. It's important to make ways to share with your child and your teen that you trust them. This can help boost their communication and them wanting to have confidence in you that they can share things that maybe they wouldn't otherwise want to. It's important to listen to them, which may sound really obvious and simple, but just listen, give them time to talk. Don't talk over and interject all the time. Direct questions can push them away. If you want to know something, ask open questions. They're going to be much more likely to open up. And also make yourself emotionally available. Give them that time to talk. That might mean setting aside a certain time a week where it's kind of your catch up time. But it just makes them know that they are valued and that you actually want to know what's going on and how they're feeling. So another thing is to validate. So, a lot of the things that they're feeling might feel alien to them and it might feel strange to you. You may not completely understand why they might be feeling the way that they do, but don't be dismissive, because what is going on for them and how they're feeling is ultimately very real for them. So you need to make sure that they feel safe in expressing their emotions and that they don't feel judged or belittled. So you can set rules, but try not to dictate. So if there is a rule in place, it might be helpful to explain that rule to your teenager, to your young person, to your child, or to whoever that might be. They're going to be much more likely to be open to and therefore follow rules and boundaries if they understand the reason why. So you might not want them to go to a party on a school night, because they'll be tired, they'll not do well in school, maybe they'll fail an exam or anything else. But if you explain those reasons, they're going to be more likely to agree than just a simple no, in which case you're kind of the bad guy in that scenario. It's also important to openly talk about the risks, where rules might include risks. Teenagers are probably going to experiment with drinking, sex, maybe drugs. So openly talk about these topics, and it's going to be then much more likely that they will talk to you if they do experience problems in any of these areas. And finally, be observant. So teenagers are going to change. They're going to change likes, dislikes. They're going to change maybe even personalities and things like that. But just be observant and keep an eye out. If you notice a complete change in any of the things that I've said before, maybe they go from being completely sociable and wanting to go out all the time to staying at home, staying in the bedroom, staying kind of locked away, or vice versa. This might indicate that actually they may be struggling with their mental health, and it's just important to keep an eye on these things, because sometimes behaviour can tell us a lot more than words can. So they are kind of, for us, the most crucial ways that you can promote healthy communication with your teen. So we did a survey in the community where we asked the public what they believed to be the most important factors when it came to parent-teen communication. And we're just going to quickly run through some of these results. So what I found to be kind of most shocking out of all of these results is that out of the responses that we gave for people to choose from, nobody who answered the survey believed openness and understanding to be kind of really important factors in healthy communication, which I found to be quite shocking, I suppose, really. But out of those that responded, 9% believed honesty to be very important in parent-teen communication. Another 9% believed listening to be very important. 18% believed two-way conversation to be important. 37 believed empathy, and 27 said all of the above, which I think everybody, even watching, would agree. Those things to be really important when talking with anybody, I suppose. So what I believe to be one of the most informative questions that we asked those that completed our survey was, if you could or could have told your parents one thing about their communication style, what would it be, or what would it have been? So some of the results included to speak to me rather than at me, If you're going to be open, then be honest. Children believe what you tell them. If that's not the truth, they may be hurt when they find out. So I think that's going back to that key element of trust, like we mentioned before. To explain that being vulnerable isn't weakness and that showing emotion is okay. And so validate the feelings. They're not weak to have emotions. And actually being able to talk about their emotions and what's going on for them means the exact opposite. That it didn't encourage openness, not oppressive, but disinterested and judgmental. So maybe these parents didn't always validate the feelings of their child. Don't shout, talk, and listen to me for once. Too dictatorial and was lacking affirmation. Teens need to know when they're doing the right thing and not solely the wrong thing. Rules are important, yes, but a conversation without raised voices and criticism will help your teen understand their application and feel valued. So that's like we said, to set rules but not dictate, explain why such rules need to be in place. And I think that's absolutely right, that teens who might constantly hear what they're doing wrong, how they need to improve, it can't be very nice and surely will have negative effects on their self-worth. So it's important to give your teen, your child, your young person praise too. And that sometimes less is more. That they need to talk to me more. To stop shouting. And that was kind of all of the results from our survey. So I think really, if you look at all of those, some of those things maybe could have been solved by trusting your teen, listening to them, validating their emotions, setting rules but not dictating them, and just being observant. So this kind of concludes our webinar, and I'm going to leave you with some key questions to think about. So, do you believe that your teenagers let you know when something is wrong? Is your teenager fearful of your opinion? And is your teenager distant? So, you will kind of know the answers to these questions, and depending upon your answer, it may indicate that your communication may improve or maybe is exactly where it needs to be. So it is important to let teenagers experience life. They're going to make mistakes and hopefully they're going to learn from them, but that's a process that they need to go through themselves. We need to make environments for children where they feel safe, where if something does go wrong, they're not fearful of the opinion of parents and guardians, but rather know that there is a safe space and someone that they can go to ask for support and for guidance. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that communication really can act as a key protective factor for poor mental health, and it's something to be encouraged at all times. So the Me Project does offer a variety of different mental health services for children in and around Doncaster. We have video support, we offer one-to-one support and also group sessions. So if you are interested in a mental health service for yourself, for your young person, then please contact us at any of the details on screen. And thanks for watching.